Final bosses are meant to be these big, cinematic, crazy moments in video games where it's like, wow, I'm supposed to take that thing out. And these bosses aren't like that. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the 10 worst final bosses in video games. Starting off at number 10, it's the Destroyer from Borderlands. The 7th generation was what we call a dark time in boss fight history. Basically around 2005-ish to around 2015, a lot of games came out with some truly subpar final bosses. These days, it seems like developers are willing to try a little harder to have their games to end in a bit more of a satisfying way, but the Destroyer, he's got to be one of the most infamous. The vault sort of gets hyped up for the entire game, and during the final approach, I remember being pretty excited to see how this was all going to shake out. Ooh, you actually get to explore the vault? What kinds of crazy aliens are in there? There'd be a lot of awesome possibilities there. Basically anything you could imagine would be better than what we actually got. So you get to the vault door, and the bad guy gets killed unceremoniously, and you're thrown into a battle with this pile of eyeballs and tentacles. When the game originally came out, the thing was a pushover that you could kill without even really realizing what it was. Like, literally seconds after the cutscene ended. With the updated remaster, which we played to get footage for this fight, they at least did make it a little tougher, but not so much that it's a satisfying fight. Yeah, at least it does die incredibly quickly, but for the whole fight, this thing just kind of sits there. It flaps a few tentacles around, spits some globs of goo at you. For something called the Destroyer, it's really just not very threatening. Gearbox definitely learned their lesson from this fight, though, because every other final boss in the series has been way, way better than this one. They may not be great, but they are certainly better than this pile of meat that looks like it is literally begging you to kill it. At number 9 is Ruvik from The Evil Within. There are a lot of pretty cool bosses in The Evil Within, but the final boss is not one of them. I don't know if the developers ran out of time or what, but this whole encounter seems, well, rushed out the door to meet a deadline or something. It just screams that in my face every time I play it. There's just all this build up for the final battle with the dude who's been haunting you the entire game, Ruvik. He even transforms into a grotesque Resident Evil style monstrosity and fights you in this bizarre nightmare environment, but the fight itself is basically just a quick time event. There are so many bosses that are quick time events from this era of gaming, and they're pretty much universally terrible. For some games, it's at least, like, it kind of makes sense, like a Call of Duty game or something where there aren't any traditional bosses. But for The Evil Within, where there's bosses all over the place, you'd think the final battle would be like the final test of your skills, but no. You just run down a few halls, press a few buttons, and you win. It looks cool, I'm not gonna lie, and as a setup for the actual boss fight, it would have been awesome, but instead of being phase 1 of 2, it is the fight. It's the full fight. That's it. It's not the only QTE final boss to appear on this list, but we gotta give it to this one for at least being pretty cool looking. The other QTE bosses we're gonna talk about do not have that going for them. At number 8 is King Allant from Demon's Souls. Alright, this one's unusual because, at least to me, this is meant to be a bad boss. Like, it's intentionally anticlimactic. A bizarre ending to what is ultimately a very strange game. Demon's Souls is the first, in a lot of ways, the most experimental game in the whole Soulsborne genre of games created by From Software. The entire game is just building up to this moment. You're supposed to absorb all of the arch-demon souls so you can face the old one, a bizarre and ancient demon creature that's responsible for destroying the kingdom. After getting all 5, the way to the old one is opened to you, and most players are probably going expecting a fierce fight against a tough final boss. Instead, when you get there, the old one just kinda opens up. You go in there, you find the final boss. His name's King Allant. You faced a fake version of him earlier in the game, and he was one of the toughest bosses in the game, but in his true form, he's just kind of a pile of sludge. Seriously, he can barely move. He just kind of flops around in the small arena, barely doing any damage if he manages to hit you. Of course, him being a pathetic creature is intentional. From definitely knows how to design a tough boss. It seems like they're subverting expectations here. Like, usually a bad guy gets incredible power when they sell their soul to the demon, but here it left him as a gross mass of flesh that can hardly move. So in this case, it's an intentionally bad final boss, but it can still be pretty disappointing the first time you get to it. At number 7 is Lazarevic from Uncharted 2. Here's another boss that you fight inside a weird plant, but in this case, instead of being really easy, he's frustratingly hard. The Uncharted series has always struggled with their final bosses. The main bad guy, Lazarevic, gets to the center of the Tree of Life and drinks its sap, which makes him nearly immortal. Now you've got to chase him around this confusing environment and defeat him for good. It's basically a battle of attrition. He takes a ton of hits and you don't, so he's at a major advantage. It doesn't help that this little arena is really strange looking and maze-like. Losing track of the boss can basically mean death if he appears behind you. Shooting him directly doesn't do anything to him either. The only way to damage this guy is to shoot the blue sap when he walks near it. That's what makes this fight especially annoying. On top of everything else, you have to carefully time your shots to actually damage him. As the battle drags on, he just gets more and more annoying too. He starts running instead of walking, he throws multiple grenades at once. Honestly, the fight isn't even that long, it just feels like forever, because you keep dying right near the end and it forces you to restart. It's just an all-around brutal boss that doesn't feel like an appropriate challenge compared to everything that came before it. I mean, props to the developers for not just making a QTE boss like so many other games, but in this case, it could have been an improvement. At number 6 is Lambent Brumac from Gears of War 2. Gears of War 2 is an awesome game, and it's unique among shooters in that it has a lot of cool and fun boss encounters in it. But the final one, it absolutely sucks. It's one of those bosses where you fight it, you win almost instantly, and you go, that's it? At the end of Gears 2, your mission is to sink the city of Jacinto, flooding the tunnels of the Locusts and hopefully stopping their assault. When you go down there, you find the real reason the Locust horde is trying to take the surface is this fuel source called emulsion, which is actually some kind of living thing, and it's infecting the Locusts, turning them against one another. At the end, one of the biggest monsters in the whole series, the Brumac, gets infected and transforms into this giant monster. The Gears of War games are usually pretty good about giant monster fights, but not here. They modeled this cool looking giant monster for that. And number 5 is the Tomb Raider reboot from 2013. It's another final boss that's basically a QTE. The possibilities of this one could have been really cool because the build-up of the story is actually pretty great. You're fighting off these undead warriors while climbing this crumbling snowy tower, and when you actually face down the final bad guy, Matthias, is kind of just a tug-of-war, and then you shoot him. That's it. Weirdly, there is a unique final enemy here, the Big Oni, the zombie decked out in samurai duds that you fight just before taking on Matthias. It's one of those things where this guy's probably supposed to be a fight on his own, but the developers ran out of time. Just threw him in at the end. I have no way of knowing if that's true or not, but it's weird that you only fight him now. And yeah, beating up the main bad guy shouldn't be that big of a deal, because he's just like an old man. But come on, the whole game is going off about the evil queen of Yamatai. You'd think you'd have to face her ghost or something, but she just kind of disappears. Nothing happens. It's one of those fights where the build-up does not match the payoff at all. Everything leading to the end was pretty cool, but the actual boss was just a big load of nothing. And number 4 is Yu Yevon from Final Fantasy X. For all of Final Fantasy X, the threat of sin looms large. This gigantic monster terrorizes the world of Spira, and is basically the main antagonist of the game. You know, ignoring Seymour. Near the end of the story, you find out this monster is actually created by someone, Yu Yevon, whose spirit resides inside the monster and the thing that specifically keeps it alive. So, your main goal in Final Fantasy X is to enter sin and destroy Yu Yevon once and for all. Pretty standard Final Fantasy stuff. There's usually some kind of man behind the man final boss in these games, but it's usually a little more impressive than what this turns out to be. Because here it is. You get to the center of sin and you meet the final boss. It's this thing. It's like a cartoon tick and it barely puts up a fight. All it does is possess your summons, which have just as much HP as they normally do, so they're all total pushovers. And you kill all the summons and it basically dies. That's it. It's literally a fight you have to go out of your way to lose, and it just isn't impressive at all. And yeah, it's probably meant to be kind of a more cinematic fight after the real last boss, Braska's final Aeon, but this thing's just plain annoying to deal with. It takes forever to kill because the animations where it possesses a summon takes so friggin' long to play out, and you spend most of the fight just watching these overly long little battle cutscenes play out. It's a drag. It's easy, it's boring, and it's annoying, and it's kind of a lame ending to an otherwise classic game. And number 3 is a Cyber Demon from Doom 3. Back when it first came out, Doom 3 was pretty divisive, partly because of how it changed things from the classic games, and partly because so few people could actually play it. The system requirements at the time were crazy, and it did look awesome for 2004, if you could play it. And while there are critics, there are also a lot of people who defend this game. I don't think anyone's defending the final boss, though. They managed to take the Cyber Demon, one of the most badass enemies of all time, and turn it into a chump. What makes this such a lame fight is that you don't even really fight him. He stomps around the arena and fires a few easy to avoid missiles at you. But when you shoot him, it doesn't actually do any damage. The only way to hurt the Cyber Demon is by using the Soul Cube. That's it. You just kill some of the chump enemies around the arena to charge it up. Then throw the cube at him a few times, and that's it. It falls over dead. That's it. Just keels over. It's pretty sad that this regular enemy version of the Cyber Demon from Doom Eternal, called the Tyrant, but I mean, it's the Cyber Demon, look at it. It's actually tougher than this final boss in Doom 3. And number 2 is Colonel Autumn from Fallout 3. Remember this dude? I don't blame you if you don't, because President Eden is the thing anyone actually remembers from this game. You deal with Eden by talking to him, but Autumn, it's actually possible to fight. He's really, just pathetic, though. Even though he's the leader of the Enclave in the Capital Wasteland, one of the most technologically advanced factions in the Fallout universe, when you face him, he's just wearing regular clothes, and he's got a dinky little plasma pistol. At this point, you got the whole Brotherhood of Steel helping you, and you're most likely decked out in power armor. Just some guy, a man, a fella in street clothes, he doesn't have a chance against you, even if he's got a few bodyguards. In most of these games, talking the enemy down from a fight makes things easier for you, but in this case, talking him down is almost a mercy because he's dead in seconds if he tries to take you on. And just compare this guy to the final boss in Fallout 2, Frank Horrigan, a giant mutant in custom battle armor. This guy looks like a final boss. Colonel Autumn looks like a chump. And finally, at number 1, it's Bionic Commandos Super Joe. A Bionic Commando game from 2009 was weird as hell. Most people probably know about it because of the insane twist that your wife's soul or something is in the bionic arm, but at least that's funny. The final boss, on the other hand, is just lame. There's a lot of build-up, as per usual. Maybe you noticed that that's a running theme on this list. There's tons of build-up, and then a huge letdown. And that holds here. But you enter this mysterious bunker, and you face off with your commanding officer, Super Joe. Yes, seriously, that's his name, who's decked out in some power armor. The place you're in is obviously an arena. Look at this place. This is a boss room for sure. So what happens next? Well, he flies away and you don't even fight him. Instead, you fight these, other robots and some lame QTEs that you defeat him in a cutscene. It's obvious they ran out of time and money at this point. Those robots were going to be just enemies, and that room was supposed to have a real fight in it, but they ran out, so they made that thing just a cutscene. Like we said earlier, there are a ton of just awful rush job QTE bosses during the PS3/Xbox 360 era, and while they all sucked, this one standed out as being particularly lame and disappointing. That's all for today, though. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.